Many times over the last 3 years, covering the war in Ukraine every day, I mentioned that the war has global effects. Well, the effect goes both ways. So, what's happening in Ukraine affects other countries, including the US. And what's happening in the US affects what goes on in Ukraine. This is a prime example. The chaos with the USAID is likely going to impact many places negatively. Many programs cost human lives, and this is one of them. So one of the projects that USAID was working on is supporting independent media in countries where that was needed, including Ukraine and Russia. Particularly in Russia, that is huge. Right now, Russia's dissidents, Russia's independent journalists are basically left without any support whatsoever. And we already know all about those very slippery windowsills and balconies out there. So that is just one of the examples how you can't just snap your fingers and say, yep, this is gone, without considering the consequences. People might ask, well, how is having independent journalism in Russia benefiting me personally in the United States? Independent journalism in Russia helps reveal the ways in which Russia meddles in the affairs of other countries, including the US. Do you want to continue having the effects of the results of your election determined by Putin? Is that what you want? Do you want to actually know how issues with the Ukrainian economy are directly affecting the prices of groceries that you buy? That's how it affects you personally. So you think on that. Whoa, they're back. So we had the headline yesterday that North Korean troops were pulled away from the front lines because they were frankly an embarrassment and more of an impediment than anything else. Now apparently they're putting them back. And again, I want to ask the question to the people of North Korea, are you okay with somebody jerking your chain like that? Because that's exactly what's going on. The reason they decided to go with that is that fighting in the Kursk region had intensified, and they figured, well, it's better to have incompetent, terrified, unprepared North Korean troops there than no troops at all. So basically, again, North Koreans over there are nothing but cannon fodder. They're basically just sacrificial lambs. And of course, conversation continues about, talking with Russia, talking with Ukraine. And so Trump was asked, is he going to meet with Zelensky? And he said probably. And they asked him where he was going to do that. And he said probably in Washington. But because I'm not going there. Why, Donald? Why won't you go there? You keep telling everybody how brave and tough you are. Why won't you go there? I think, since you said you wanted to understand this war because you need to understand it in order to end it, you should totally go there. Go to Ukraine, go to Kiev, hang out there for about a week. In fact, you know what? Spend about a couple of days in Kiev, then go to the periphery. Go to Donetsk, go to Zaporizhia, go to Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, Kherson, Odessa. Go to all those. Do a grand tour. And then we'll talk. Once again, so going back to our conversation about independent information, this right here is a prime example. So Russia, once again, is claiming that it has taken a Ukrainian city, which is important. And there's no way to verify this because they lie all the freaking time. Now, the one detail that this talks about is that this is the first major object Russia would have taken since taking Avdiivka almost a year ago. So that's, you know, there is that. And again, this goes back to the fact that Ukrainians are fighting like angry buzzsaws and making Russians pay for every single centimeter of their land. But again, this is impossible to verify because Russia lies. So, in addition to a safety conference in Munich, there's also a big meeting in Paris for France, Germany, Poland, Britain, Spain, and Italy. Talking again about what are we going to do. U.S. envoy might or might not attend. Does it surprise me? This uncertainty doesn't surprise me. Because again, at this time, the current administration is seeking to isolate the U.S. from its allies. It's plain and simple. Here's another thing. This is amusing. So Kremlin is complaining that there's been a lot of inaccurate reports on U.S. plans for ending the war in Ukraine. You know why? Because you folks contribute to those reports. You know, a report is a summary of data. And if data is shit, then the report is going to be shit. Garbage in, garbage out. Stop lying. If you want accurate reports, stop fucking lying. There's a continued conversation, about the prosecution of Russian war criminals, including Putin, by the International Criminal Court. Again, my biggest question is for you guys, how are you going to get him out there? What are you going to do? How are you going to hole him there? Because he's just going to hole up in his armored compound in Moscow and sit there. How are you going to hold him responsible? And adding to everybody's discomfort about this, the International Atomic Energy Agency chief said that the number of attacks on Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant had increased. Yes. And that is so. What are you going to do about this? We have known that Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is a pain point since Russians took it in March, like a month after the war began. Again, my question is not telling us, yes, this is dangerous, this is bad, they're violating safety protocols. We know. What are you going to do? Because we said this before. While it's true that after the Chernobyl disaster, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been revamped, redesigned, and safeguards have been put into place to avoid such a disaster. But we don't know the state it's in right now because it's been under Russian control. We don't know what security protocols they decided not to observe. We don't know what maintenance they decided not to do. Plus, they put fucking landmines all over the goddamn place, including right next to the reactor buildings. So, instead of whining that this is dangerous, bang on doors of every world leader everywhere, demanding to do something about this. And the only way to do something about it is, I'm afraid, an armed intervention. This is great news. I wanted to finish on a high note because this is horrible and we all need some high notes. So, the Baltic states are officially ending their energy relationship with Russia, and that is fantastic. They're getting off the Russian grid. Good for you guys. I know this has been a long time coming. This has been so much work. This has been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for everyone involved. I am so happy for you. Good for you. The rest of the world should do the same thing. The rest of the world should break itself free from Russian anything. Good on you. Enjoy this particular aspect of your freedom.